So the first leak was the pan itself. The gasket was leaking, so I removed the pan, cleaned it. I'm just gonna reseal it. So this pan doesn't have any drain plugs. That's another thing that I'm gonna install on it. So this is the low side, and I will be installing a drain plug, welding a nut onto it, and using a Toyota drain plug. The second leak was, this is where the dipstick goes, dipstick tube. So dipstick tube has this gasket, black rubber gasket, which has gotten brittle over time, and it's not round anymore, it's kind of squared out. So I will be removing this, cleaning it, and installing a new gasket. Third major leak on this transmission was this neutral safety switch. Check inside the hole of the dipstick. If there's any debris or buildup, clean it with an emery cloth or something else. This is what the new O-ring looks like. This is a flattened out O-ring. See, you can see the flat spot, it's brittle. So when I was trying to take it out, it broke off. So it wasn't sealing well. So we'll use this brand new O-ring. And that's the part number for the O-ring if somebody's interested in buying it from Dodge. I did clean up the dipstick tube as well. Right here is where that O-ring sits. What? I would suggest putting on some sort of lithium grease or an O-ring grease, because you don't want to put a regular grease because the O-ring will swell up after some time. With this, it won't get cut or bruised while going in. It will go in with the ease. I will also put some right in the, okay, hold on, in the hole where it's supposed to sit. So this is where the hole is. This is where I put some white lithium grease. Let's fish it in. Some of the white lithium grease got pushed out. Yeah, that's okay, just clean it up. And this is where the nut and the bolt goes to secure the dipstick tube. I don't think it will leak anymore at this location. So I had to reseal it. You can see that orange gasket maker. I couldn't find the rubber gasket, so I ended up using like a gasket maker, Permatex gasket maker on it, a high temp gasket maker. That's what I use for now. We'll see if it leaks again, then we'll have to buy the whole sensor to replace, because the gasket comes with a sensor. You can't buy the gasket by itself. So there's no more leak in the transmission, but after a few days I saw a trail of oil dripping down from the neutral safety switch. The housing itself, this plastic, where it's crimped on by this metal piece, it's leaking right here. I don't know if you guys can see a drop, but there's a drop always building up here. So as soon as I filled up the oil in the transmission, so it started dripping right from the sensor housing, the safety switch, neutral safety switch housing, which trailed down all the way and make it look like it was a rubber gasket, the transmission pan gasket, but the pan gasket is fine. It's just this safety switch. I have a brand new safety switch which I'm replacing right now. So I got this sensor, this neutral safety switch from Amazon, and once I installed it, there's no more leakage. because the housing on the newer one's not leaking, and on the old one it was leaking. But now the problem is that this neutral safety switch has these pins a little bit inwards, and because this is the newer style, and this plug doesn't fit on there because it's brittle. It's from back in the day, and the plastics gotten brittle. So I tried looking this online. I couldn't find it anywhere, not at the dealer, not at the, so I had to go to a scrap yard and get a new, not new, I mean a used one. But if you touch this, see, this still has the flex in it, and this fits on perfectly like that. So I'll cut it off and splice the good used old one in. So now I crimped on these bud connectors and put some shrink tubes on. I'll crimp it on the other end and then heat shrink the shrink tubes. This is what the end product looks like. So if you're using using a crimp and a shrink tube, make sure you buy those shrink tubes with the, I don't know what it's exactly called, but there's a glue that oozes out once you warm it up. It's a waterproof connection here. Once I was done shrinking the heat shrinks, I got some electrical tape, or you can get a cloth tape on. I just did not had enough cloth tape, or I would have just used the cloth tape because it lasts longer. So half of this I covered with the cloth tape, and then rest of it with the electrical tape. So this is what it looks like now. I routed it against the tail shaft speed sensor with some zip ties, and there's the connect. This is the transmission oil pan. I cleaned it out inside, and this is the thicker side, this is the smaller side, and it already had this low spot. I don't know if it was from something hitting from inside. The way it looks like something was hitting from inside. I don't know why that piece would hit in here, but still. So this is the same spot that I'm trying to use to put a drain plug. So this drain plug is from a 2008 Toyota Camry hybrid engine oil drain plug, which is what I bought from Toyota. And then I bought a matching nut, a high tensile steel nut from a local nuts and bolt store, and it's the same thread size. So it's M12 by 1.25 thread counter. So this is what I'm gonna weld down here, and once you tighten it up, it doesn't protrude, so it won't be touching in anything, so there won't be any difference inside. It's just something sitting on, I mean, this will be sitting on outside, but there won't be anything sticking inside, because I see online some of the nuts that you can buy, there's a protrusion inside. I don't want to take any chances. I don't want to check any clearances, so just to be sure, it's just gonna sit outside. I'm just gonna braze weld that. I don't have a TIG welder or a MIG welder, so I'm just gonna braze it with an oxy-acetylene torch. I will obviously drill a drain hole, and then see, this side came out pretty good. I cleaned off all the soot that came in from oxidation of the metal, because I don't want any debris inside the pan. So I cleaned it out. I'll wipe it off with the brake clean before I install it. Now I'm gonna clean out this side. I cleaned it a little bit. It came out pretty good. So I'm just gonna use a steel bristle brush to clean it fine. So then get a correct size tap, and tap it through to clean all the debris or any of the molten metal that got into the threads from brazing it. Now let's check the fitment of the drain plug. Oh yeah, once you torque it down, it's easier to drain the oil pan rather than dripping the oil out of the whole pan. This is what it looks like inside. I installed a brand new filter, torqued down the 3 screws that were holding the filter in place, and here's a brand new gasket. It's a rubber gasket. The other one was a cork gasket, which was kind of swelling out and getting pushed out while it was torqued down. So this time it's a rubber gasket with a little coat of Honda Bond. Out of my experience, Honda Bond holds liquid inside perfectly. So this oil pan is not a perfect oil pan. The surface is kind of deformed a little bit where the nuts torque down. So hopefully I will be leaving this pan dry for 3 days. I will wait for the Honda Bond to settle down, to dry out perfectly before I put it on. So I'm just gonna install it there and torque down the bolts. You know what, online it says that you gotta torque it down to about a 12.5 foot-pound. So I was at about 8 foot-pounds when I see, especially at some of the places, it bulges out. The whole gasket slips out at this corner and at this corner, which is what makes it leak. So I mean, if you guys can find a metallic gasket or a gasket that has a metal mesh inside, something that won't just slide out easily, because cork gasket and a rubber gasket will slide out. So I torque it down to about 6 or 7 foot-pounds. So I pushed the rubber gasket in, and I torque it down. And so I'm just gonna leave it the way it is for 24 hours, completely dry. There's no fluid inside. I won't be filling fluid at least 3 days. That's what the Honda Bond tube says. That leave it for 3 days without putting any fluids, because fluid contamination will not let it set properly. So that's what I'll do. At least leave it for 24 hours. I'll try to torque it down again to the specific torque spec, 12.5 foot-pounds. If it doesn't, it doesn't. We'll see.